the function of labor market information systems and the impact of policies and programs on skills and employment outcomes. The new journey will dive into a deeper analysis of big data as a new approach of skills anticipation and mismatch. And this type of new for big data is very interesting because new is related to opportunities, new possibilities, and efficiencies because of specific aspects of big data and new challenges that need to be confronted. I'm using today's webinar to welcome you to the second module of the course. And as in the first module, this module will be developed in 3 weeks. Again, as in the first module, each week will be a combination of various learning activities. Every week you will have the possibility to access an online learning lesson, participate on the weekly webinar, activate yourself on the forums where you can share ideas and own experience, or test yourself with questions pertaining to specific aspects of big data approach. We will travel in this 3-week journey, starting with the first week, which will be an introduction to big data. The approach is one of the main solutions for the transition from labor market information to labor market intelligence. And it is important to understand why big data is so highlighted and why it is happening now during the last years, which are the advantages and the challenges of big data. And today's webinar will also address some of these questions and solve some of our doubts. Of course, in the meantime, during the week, we'll have other doubts that we need to share and to find an answer for. Big data is a complex topic, and for its application, we should pay attention to advanced artificial intelligence techniques. So in the second week, we'll have time to better understand the new sources of unconventional labor market data, explore the techniques and tools that are used for the application of big data with the aim of analyzing data and provide labor market intelligence in real time. At the same time, I want to highlight a new component that will be available in the second week that was not present in the first module, the contest. What does the contest mean? We are pretty sure that with your knowledge and with the fact that you'll become more familiar with big data during these weeks, you'll have a solid background. What does it mean? That you'll use this package of knowledge to describe the big data projects that are happening in your country. And because this is a contest, participants with the best and most interesting presentations will be the resource people for the third webinar. It means that the third webinar will be a peer learning webinar. Please keep in mind that as we share experiences on big data, some of you will be the protagonists of the last webinar, and we'll have the possibility to learn some good lessons, understand which are the challenges and what is feasible in your country. We will update you about the contest on the news session, so please have a look at the updates on the platform. But the contest will open on Monday, and its deadline will be on Sunday, 4th of September. During next week, we'll also be able to possibly have a coffee break, discuss about what is going on with the contest and what is the stage of development of big data in your countries. What are your experiences on big data? So it will be nice to have you live in an online coffee break together and discuss about this. The third webinar, but not only, the whole third week will focus mainly on the experiences of big data in various countries, the application of big data in various fields of labor market. And at the end of the third week, we'll have an assignment that will cover the whole module 2. Now I want to pay attention to our first webinar. Our speaker is an expert from European Training Foundation Agency, Ms. Eduarda Castelbranco. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for being with us today. Ms. Eduarda has an extensive professional experience in international cooperation. Her domains of expertise are skills anticipation and matching, qualification systems and frameworks. She works with country stakeholders, policymakers, and research, and she's the one who has initiated and is coordinating now ETF activities in the domain of big data for labor market intelligence. I can continue more, but I prefer that Eduarda, before her presentation, provides a description of herself and of European Training Foundation Agency. And just before giving the floor to Eduarda, I will let you know that we have, at the end of the presentation, a question and answer session dedicated to you. So please take advantage of this good opportunity to address questions to Eduarda and to have the answer of our doubts. Eduarda, thank you again for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon for all of you from ASEAN, from the different countries. I'm very moved to be here with you today. Sorry, I'm always emotional when I speak with people from countries, so diverse countries. I am myself Portuguese, born in Africa. So thank you, all of you, for the patience and ILO for inviting. Mirella, I know you from your previous experience also in ETF, and actually we are all in the same city working in Turin, ILO Training Center and ETF, so it's like a family. And I hope this webinar will also be like working together on this topic that is, as Mirella said, very, very important because it can really contribute to improve labor market intelligence. And with this, I just want to also say that I am not a data scientist. I am working with a multidisciplinary team, and big data for labor market information require multidisciplinary knowledge and teams. So from one side, the IT side, if we would simplify in these terms, the data science aspect, fundamental, and of course also the contextualization, country contextualization, and labor market research skills, anticipation skills in this domain as well. I'm going then to share my presentation. I hope I will do it in a very efficient manner. I hope you can all see.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and I hope you can also hear me well. Yeah,
perfect.
Okay, so, thanks. Just my name, Eduarda Castelbranco. European Training Foundation is an agency of the European Union working in the domains of skills, qualifications, skills anticipation, learning, labor market intelligence, and doing work in terms of policy development, analysis, monitoring of policies, development of methodologies and tools with countries of Central Asia, Africa, Northern Mediterranean, Southern Mediterranean, and of course the countries of Central and Eastern Europe, those that are not member states of the European Union. So today I've divided the presentation in these four, let's say, blocks: starting notes, then the ETF Big Data for Labor Market Intelligence project, then a section about how is it done, but I will do it in a very short, synthesized manner, because this is more of a technical session, and I know that you are going to go in depth into these topics in your next session next week, and then examples from the ETF project. So the starting notes I would like to mention here are as follows. So the analysis of online job vacancies is at the core of the current ETF online job vacancy project. So it is demand analysis. But, and this is very important, artificial intelligence aided data analytics and web data offer very diverse, wider perspectives for analysis, for discovery of insights, of trends related with the supply side as well. And this is an element that ETF is starting now to explore. But for now, our system as it stands is focused on demand and focused on online job vacancies. I'd like also to mention that the data system if we can call it in simplified manner like that, can be tailored, can be adjusted to the needs of each country or the stakeholders promoting, involving the system, developing the system with ETF. So, for example, the variables for the analysis, data visualization and delivery can be tailored. Another important note is that building and maintaining is important. The online job vacancy analysis system requires a specific approach, techniques and tools. Therefore, the maintenance and further development is always substantially based and built on state-of-the-art methodologies, and of course an experienced data science team that need to take care of the quality, of the consistency, permanent monitoring and training, of course, of the algorithms further. So this is not a minor aspect. On the contrary, this is very fundamental. ETF is now also from this year going to improve the possibilities and tools to allow access of the national organizations to the data, to the raw data, let's say, of the database. So this is a new element, a new aspect of work that we are going to develop further. Looking at the drivers of change of our world in total transformation, a very quick and multifaceted transformation. Of course, we know about digitization, automation, artificial intelligence as a fundamental driver of change. The COVID-19, whose repercussions are going to be long-lasting. For example, look at remote and hybrid work. The greening of the economy and society that are fundamental for our survival as a planet. Societal movements as well, rights, democracy, access to information, innovation, and of course also geopolitics. So just summarizing, in a way, the future of work has arrived ahead of schedule. And the period we have now lived since 2020 has in fact can be characterized as 2 years of digital innovation in 2 months, and we all have gone through it. This also means that there is a very strong change of the mix of jobs and also the skills mix across countries. And this will require a very strong capacity of countries to reskill the working population. So learning anytime, anywhere, hybrid skills. So all these are important elements with which we need to deal. And of course, labor market intelligence supporting policy responses to all these demands of the world in transformation needs also to be able to respond quicker, more agile, in real time, in granular manner. This means also innovation. That's what we are saying, is that labor market and skills intelligence is, let's say, more important than ever, despite all the transformation, the disruptions that we are going through. The users of labor market intelligence are located at different levels, at macro, like policy making level, let's say at meso level, sectors, territories, regions, and then at micro level where things are happening with enterprises, with education and training provision, communities, employers, etc. The combination of methods is fundamental in a labor market intelligence or skills observatory anticipation system, because there is no single method or approach or source of data that can provide response to the entirety of the dimensions that need to be taken into account: the short term, the medium term, the long term. So also the macro, meso, and micro levels. So that's why this in ETF and also ILO, we always say the combination of methods is fundamental. Then also the fact that labor market intelligence needs to be able to provide benefits and response to questions such as informing also the wider public, not only informing policy, but also informing the wider public to reorient policies, related implementation measures, to know much quicker now what is happening, what are the projections related to trends in demand and supply, new changing, emerging occupations, job profiles, content of jobs, serious bottlenecks, shortages, gaps, how to solve. We are all facing incredible bottlenecks currently, for example, in European countries. Lifelong learning, what lifelong learning, how to make it really relevant for the provision of all this upskilling, reskilling that is fundamental. I'll be very short, just noting that the transformation of labor market information and intelligence is, of course, already happening, and artificial intelligence is part of this transformation as well. So artificial intelligence, machine learning are not only changing the labor market, but also giving us new tools for analyzing the workforce. Yes, there are terabytes of data, for example, for online job vacancies, but not only, also from other different sources on the internet. And so it is fundamental to be able to harness and to explore these resources. This is data that, of course, needs to be transformed. Then these vast and very fast data sources are essential to understand the transformation of jobs, of changing forms of work, employers' recruitment practices, also in the context of the COVID-19 and beyond. Maybe important to note that these elements, these new possibilities are already being harnessed and explored by a number of public bodies in a number of countries. And for example, CDFOP has created already a system which can be considered a breakthrough called Skills of 8 for the EU 27. And Eurostat, the European Union statistical system, is also building and advancing well with this, creating trusted, smart statistics that will be a complement to conventional statistics. And together, conventional and trusted smart statistics will form then the official statistics. So that's also an important element that is worth noting here. Yes, labor market intelligence information is changing, both in terms of the three blocks that we see on this slide: the data sources, data analysis, and also data delivery. So from structured conventional statistical data that remains and will remain always essential, to adding new sources, because we are in this datified society. And so it is adding, it's not replacing, but adding. Then data analysis based on statistical analysis, specialized studies, etc., to AI-aided methods, data science based analytics, data delivery based on tables, databases, reports, to web intelligence shared systems based on APIs, online interactive dashboards, tailored by users and for users. So, as already mentioned earlier, Eurostat is creating, for example, trusted smart statistics with CDFOP using the Web Intelligence Hub. And this is an interesting innovation that is that we wanted here to mention. Now, looking quickly at the big data for LMI, labor market intelligence, the ETF project itself. The main elements of this data system in a nutshell are as follows. So we are exploring data from online job vacancies, not from social media, not yet. Then it is an AI-aided data system in terms of the entire process. We will see it immediately after. Of course, and this is fundamental, the classification of data is done against international classifications, ISCO 08 at 4-digit level for occupations, and also ESCO for the skills, knowledge, attitudes, and other international classifications, obviously, ESCAD for education, and ACE for areas of economic activity, or NUTS for regions, for example. So the use of international classifications, taxonomies, is a fundamental aspect that provides then the necessary comparability. Then another important element is this use of the dashboards for the data delivery, visualization. Let the data speak, and this is something we can discuss. So a more bottom-up approach, if we can say, and it's a paradigm, an important change of paradigm. So the data exists, we can query that data, let the data speak. And finally, the 5 V's of big data, which are, as you know, volume, incredible volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. Veracity, always an important issue when we are dealing with big data or data from the internet. On this scheme or picture, what we are saying is that the big data era is actually the result, or was prompted by the combination of these 3 things, phenomena: data torrent, computing anytime, anywhere, growing computing power, and AI algorithms. So this is what has prompted and created this big movement towards the big data era. ETF project started end of 2018, and for a year it was an exploration of methodological conceptual aspects that led us to produce an introductory guide. It is published, Big Data for Labor Market Intelligence. It's published in 3 languages. You can access it online. Then in this initial period, we also tested the aspects of this guide by conducting feasibility analysis of the web labor markets in 2 countries, Tunisia and Morocco. This also allowed us to fine-tune the methodology of landscaping of web labor markets. And then from 2020, we started, actually with the beginning of the pandemic, we started the actual creation of the complete online job vacancy analysis system and dashboard, of course, with 2 countries initially, Tunisia and Ukraine. And 2021, a new country was added, Georgia. And there in 2021, we started adding new variables, new phenomena in the dashboards, notably analysis of green skills as detected from the data of these big data lakes of online job vacancies. So as already said, the data currently is exclusively based on demand, online job vacancies posted on various types of web portals. The selection of these web portals is based on the landscaping exercise. We will also see it quickly right after. Important to note that there is a full comparability of the data, the insights, the results, the classification with the real-time data system of the European Union 27, because we are using the same, let's say, methodology and architecture of tools as CDFOP, which is the agency sister to ETF. And to do this work, ETF is working with data analytics specialists of the University Milano Bicocca and MCGB, which is now recalled Lightcast. A new phase now in 2022. So until 2021, we were in a pilot phase. 2022 to 2024 starts a new phase in which we are then going to continue to maintain, improve, but expand and also improve a number of qualitative aspects of the tools. And here we are just providing a number of examples. So expand to new countries, Egypt and Kenya this year, next year, Algeria, Morocco. For example, in the case of Egypt, could be interesting just to note. So besides creating the system architecture with the data inflow, classification, visualization tool, we are also agreeing with the National Task Force Labor Market Intelligence on the features, variables to tailor the dashboard and embed also the dashboard as agreed, for example, within the national some of the national labor market analytics instruments, such as, for example, relating the dashboard, OGV dashboard Egypt with the Egyptian occupational outlook. So in general, as I already mentioned, improved data delivery and dashboards are among the targets of the work now in this new phase, analysis of new phenomena, features on demand side, such as green skills, also remote work, another feature that can be analyzed by questioning the data lakes, let the data speak, as I was saying earlier. We are also preparing a concept paper looking into contextualization of online job vacancy data in the wider labor market data, because OGV data adds value. And we need to know a little better how to contextualize. So, for example, the question of meaningfulness or representativeness. Then capacity development, dissemination of results and debate are going to continue. We had many different events in the two previous years. I'm not going to say anything new here, just point why online job vacancies, what do they give? Well, in fact, they can give a lot, because they represent demand of employers, of enterprises. They speak in a way the language of the labor markets. They are up to date. Employers publish job vacancies when they need to recruit workers. They can be quite detailed, and the data science tools allow the determination of many granular aspects and use of all the language of the online job vacancies. So the goal is to create value, obviously, and it is about transforming all these thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of online job vacancies in different formats with noise, more or less detailed, into value, which are then the insights, the trends, the dashboards, interactive dashboards that can be used by different types of users. I've already mentioned, but it's never too much to say, that we are obviously working with the international taxonomies, classifications, so that the data, the results are understandable and comparable, and can also be used by the, let's say, conventional labor market institutions and instruments. A very important point that I also would like to note now is that OGV data, online job vacancies, or advertisements could even be a better term, is a gold mine. Is a gold mine that needs to be explored. It's a gold mine from one side because it is real time, it is fast, and it is granular data, more granular than we can obtain from surveys. It is also a gold mine because of the links. And this is fundamental, the links that can be done with other data sets, statistical, and also with other big data databases from other institutions, countries, companies. But we have to note, because of the specificities of online or web labor markets, online job vacancies, then the coverage is partial of the labor market in terms of sectors, occupations, qualifications. It depends very much on the extent of use, dissemination, penetration of web tools in the online job vacancies. So in certain countries, the penetration is very, very large. In this case, then the coverage is wider. In other countries, it is a narrower coverage, as we know. How is this done? And now I'm going to use, this is, as I said, not my realm. I'm not a data scientist, but of course I learned through these 3 years of work with the data scientists and producing all this information. So this is a very brief presentation of how this is done. So key components are 3. First, data ingestion or data collection, if you prefer. Data processing, and this contains different aspects, and data analysis, obviously. Ingestion, meaning collecting raw data from all these millions of online job vacancies that are presented, that appear in structured and very unstructured raw text formats, depending on the typology or the way of scraping. data. Data processing, it is about cleaning, deduplication, and also then classifying. Then data analysis, which is the extraction of information from data, making it available through visualization. So this visualization is, of course, it is the last part, let's say, of the process. And this
Eduarda,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know that we have addressed we want to address the questions at the end of the presentation, but I don't. Maybe someone wants to raise a hand and ask some question related to what has been said so far. And
Yep.
I see that in the chat there is Lan from Vietnam who is asking that how does it happen? How do we deal with duplicate cases? Because one job vacancy may be published in several websites, and I know that this is also part of the. You maybe explain it here in these slides.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks very much for this question, which is really very important. And the application of online job vacancies is actually a good thing, because it provides then in the database let's say the redundancy that is needed to cope with the problem of sometimes some online job vacancy sources, web portals closing or interrupting activity or not allowing scraping. So this is a good thing from one side. So we have the same online job vacancy from different sources. That's a fundamental positive aspect. But we need, and we do, deal then with deduplication, and the techniques used allow and are focused exactly in identifying the duplicates and keeping in the database the first issue, so the online job vacancies that were first published, because we always look at and have in the process in the technology the first date of issuance of publication and the last date of publication of each online job vacancy in each of the sources. So this aspect of duplication has two, let's say, facets: a positive one as source redundancy, and then another one which concerns then quality, and this is done in this process, in this pre-processing phase that you can see here on the screen. Pre-processing, it is the elimination of noise. So in online job vacancies can contain lots of little pieces of information that are not relevant, some announcements or some logos, of course, some words about something else. So this is all noise that is eliminated, and then the deduplication. And the deduplication can be very well seen when we will look at the examples of dashboards. I hope this was an initial clear information.
Thank you very much, Eduarda. I don't know if other participants want to address another question related to what was said so far. I also want to highlight the fact that the report as the guidance of big data and labor market intelligence that was issued from European Training Foundation Agency is one of the main references of our course. And it is very nice that this report was issued in 2019, and now ETF is updating us with the new phase of big data from 2022 to 2024. It means that you are expanding your project, so you are highlighting, and so this project is more important than before. And we know where, so we have an idea where we are going, what the future is waiting for us.
And I just use the fact that you are mentioning this to say that we can also explore jointly with you possibilities to cooperate with the ASEAN countries if they are interested. And of course, they can be part and of all the dissemination, capacity development activities that we will have, debates naturally. So that's it. That was just to continue your point, Mirala.
Could be a very good idea. I hope that participants will join us with questions, but maybe they will want to address at the end.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be very quick because we have already in very brief terms explained this. Maybe here what I want again to point is to the fact that we start actually the process not by ingestion. but by landscaping. That's a very fundamental point. First, it's important to know what is the web labor market of this country about. How does it look like? And for that, there is also a methodological framework with criteria. And besides identifying, characterizing, we also rank the websites or whatever other sources. And this landscaping also has to be updated, because things change a lot in the web labor market. Some sources become less important, or they close. There are mergers between portals, etc. So that's a very important point. And it's a very important point also that we demonstrate, let's say, and we work together with the country institutions about the landscaping allows us also to show and to understand much better the contextualization of the data that we are going to collect in terms of the entire labor market, comparing also with data from conventional statistical sources. So maybe what's important also to say, and I'm just pointing here to the data use part of this scheme, you see database. So the database is, of course, a very large database. Each one of those online job vacancies that are collected, they are pages, represents then, after processing, one line of the database. So that it's really a gigantic database. And it grows. So from pre-processing to information extraction, the database expands, and new, let's say, columns of data are added with all the variables that are fundamental for the case. For the case, these two last parts are, of course, they represent the value for the end users, both the database that we try now to open gradually to different institutions, and the presentation area where the users can interact with the data. I'm not going now through this slide, because it's going to be presented. These things are going to be presented also in your next session, and we briefly spoke about it. And it's basically a little bit just a more granular presentation of the scheme before. We are talking here, of course, of new sources of data and new ways of creating data. And that's something that we need to bear in mind, and we need to be open to a change of paradigm. So from unstructured text, which is, let's say, implicit knowledge, through information retrieval, information extraction, semantic search, we arrive to structured content, which is then explicit knowledge. So this is the process that is done through the 5 steps that we saw before, and using artificial intelligence tools that are tailored, that are also monitored, improved throughout a project. Collecting real-time labor market data means then visit the online job sites, deduplicate the job postings, and then tagging, normalizing. This unstructured data needs to be structured through a normalization process to generate then detailed data, like the job profile and occupation, employer and industry, technical skills, etc., experience levels, even as requested, salaries, educational requirements. So there are a number, of course, of variables that can be extracted. So this is just a very brief scheme on the data classification process. That's an example. So a job vacancy with a certain text, and this from this text we can then extract information. And, for example, occupation. Junior software developer, that's the occupation as expressed in the online job vacancy. It is then possible to classify it to an ISCO 08 occupation with the ISCO 08 code. Skills, it's a bit of a different set of challenges for the classification, let's say. But the skills that appear here are, for example, develop software, implement web-based applications, problem solving, develop user experiences, etc. So different types of skills, they can also be classified, for example, using the European classification ESCO. That's what we are using. And then also the location, etc. So there is that's a very brief, just simplistic way of showing how this classification is done. And this classification is done using artificial intelligence tools. But I want also to emphasize with human in the loop. So for example, when the system is built, in the first months of the system, one important thing we do is to have then national experts working with us to verify that how the artificial intelligence tool for the classification has classified and identify all the mistakes or issues in classification, so that then the necessary measures can be taken, training done, etc. of the software again. There are challenges, and I want to not mention the challenges and opportunities. As always, we try to transform challenges into opportunities. First, challenge is to handle a huge amount of near real-time data. Then data is coming from the web, so we need to be able to detect, reduce noise. And this has to be done in a transparent manner and to be checked and verified, the performance of all these results. It's a multi-language environment, the web. In any country, there are online job vacancies in different languages. Imagine in Egypt, I mentioned earlier, Arabic language, English. Imagine Ukraine, Ukrainian, English, Russian, etc. So not an easy task. Then we need to find a way to summarize and present a wide and complex scenario. Use of databases, data sets by the key institutions, so that all this data can be of value for the stakeholders, the institutions, and need to relate to other databases and statistics. Some examples now from the ETF project, and I'm just going to be as quick as possible in the presentation. So we have here 3 dashboards. They are online, and the 3 dashboards are updated up to 30th of June 2022. Next week we will have already the update until end of July, etc. So we always have the updates done more or less within the next 20 days of the next month. In this case, you can see already the result of the application, colleagues. In Tunisia, 600 or more or less 660,000 online job vacancies collected in the database. And in the end, we have 155 deduplicated. So the deduplication process, as you can see, cuts a lot the number of online job vacancies that are actually then processed in terms of extraction of data and classification. And you can see the same for the case of Ukraine. It's a different ratio in the case of Ukraine. It's more or less 50% are then the deduplicated final set of data. In the case of Georgia, which we started only much later, you can see also the result of deduplication. The data set here is much smaller. The labor market, the web labor market, and the time series is much smaller. Variables that we are currently exploring and analyzing in visualized data are presented here. So the occupation, and this is, as said, based, the classification is done against ISCO 08, 4-digit level. The occupation, the educational level, sector, industry, which is based on NACE, skills, knowledge, attitudes, knowledge, skills, attitudes. The contract type often appears, the experience, the place, and also a new dashboard already created, these green skills. It was created end of last year, and we are, of course, still working on it, including on fine-tuning the taxonomy that actually was created specially for this purpose. And as already said, all these variables, the combination can be customized depending on your needs. This is just the example of one of the pages of the dashboard. The dashboards now are standardized. The 3 are standardized, the 3 countries. And in this one, for example, called professional dashboard, we have we have tried, and it is here, to put on one single page all the variables on one single page, so that you can always simply easily look up one of the occupations, and immediately you get the corresponding variables for that specific occupation. The dashboards are very easy to use, to navigate. The menu is there on top, as you can see. These are for now very simple dashboards, and as said earlier, in this new phase we are going also to work in tailoring for different users, creating also umbrella dashboards for different countries together, and so there is more work to be done. We are going also to introduce explanatory text, disclaimers, etc. Here we are very quick in 30 seconds, just the result of the landscaping of labor market Egypt that we did last year, and this landscaping is now being updated as we enter in the real creation of the data system Egypt. And you can see the number of portals. There are more portals than these, of course, and we still need also to add portals in Arabic language. That's one of the important tasks now for the work going forward. The criteria for ranking, everything is presented also in the materials that we shared with you. We can share with you also examples of these landscaping landscaping reports. It's always better to see concretely on concrete cases. So I'm not going now to speak a lot about green skills, jobs, and technologies. This is work that we started, as I said, in October last year. For that purpose, we have, let's say, put together a taxonomy. There is also a document explaining presenting the green skills terms of this system. We are going also to adjust this taxonomy, taking into account also the new green skills taxonomy published by ESCO now this year. So we are taking into account for the conceptual part 7 clusters of green terms, and they are related with the EU green skills agenda. And these are just some of the terms of these clusters: the cluster construction, energy, and transport. In the meantime, we have already, of course, applied the taxonomy for the extraction of data. And we see that the share of online job vacancies requiring green skills of green categories in the case of Ukraine, for example, is very small for now, only 0.20. So it's a very small what can be identified, detected using this taxonomy from the many online job vacancies of the data lake Ukraine. The same thing happens with Georgia, and Tunisia seems to be the greeniest of all of the 3 cases. You can explore all this information directly from the online job vacancy dashboards ETF. They are available online, and they are simply, you can simply enter and play with them, let's say. Of course, we need to continue analyzing why such a low rate of green skills in the online job vacancies of the countries. There are many questions that can justify this situation, from technical questions to the actual understanding by employers or use or penetration or even of green dimensions of work services in the economy. So in principle, I have finished now this presentation, and I just wanted to ask then 1 or 2 minutes to show then very quickly one of the dashboards, really very quickly, without diminishing too much the time for conversation, for discussion. Okay. I'm just selecting one. Okay.
Very interesting to look at these dashboards.
Very quickly. I know that time is limited. Okay, so I'm showing now. Mirella has published or posted this morning, I think, a document in the platform. I hope you can see well, and it is more or less is big enough for, yeah. So Mirella has posted a short, very short synthesis note about the ETF online job vacancy project, the main, let's say, results obtained, and that document contains a list of all resources, the access to all the training programs, the webinars with all the documentation, videos, etc., as well as, of course, the dashboards, different reports that we have published in the meantime, etc. So this is the first page of any of these three dashboards. As I said earlier, we are improving them. We are going also to translate them, for example, into Ukrainian language. This has been also a request by the stakeholders. And we are also adding explanatory text, an introductory explanatory text. So here we can see the number of vacancies collected, vacancies deduplicated. Then you can see also the vacancies deduplicated by source, by web source. This situation can be very changing. Some web sources, for example, block access during certain points in time of web scrapers. Then we need to use that element I mentioned before, the redundancy. So the fact that many vacancies are duplicated. Then here the distribution by release date. And as you can see, you can also select the period you want to analyze just using here this cursor. This is a Tableau-based dashboard. Then we have, as I showed in the earlier in the presentation before, the different variables. The first one is occupation. As you can see, we have then here the breakdown of all the data collected by occupational groups, first digit, the groups, the big 9 groups, and then also in more granular presentation, so the lower digit groups from ISCO 08. You can also see that the data is in all of these web pages, all of these dashboard pages presented by region also. That's something we are also doing. So allocating by source, by location, the regions. It's not easily done because, of course, first of all, not all online job vacancies present clearly a location, but many do. And so this is also an element that we are improving currently. So the actual representation of the data by regions. Then working hours, contract, etc. You can then click and go one by one, these various more granular occupations, or by the top groups, the 1-digit groups, first digit groups. Occupation, education is another presentation of the data where we combine then the occupational groups with education as well as experience. So you can access, if you are more interested in experience, you can use experience, click and you get the results. Also the change in combination by occupations, by education. You can of course go by groups. Technicians, associate professionals appear has the top group. 30% of all online job vacancies belong then to this group as ISCO 01 group, digit level 1. Occupation by industry, occupation and industry, and we are using here industry. We are using for industry NACE, and here the level, the first level, first digit is presented. You can select and do your own combinations of visualization of the results. Then industry, just industry, the top 10 industries, a more macro presentation of industries. You can go by region or just then the national representation of data. Occupation to skill is another combination. And the skills groups we have here are knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values. And of course, this is all information extracted from the texts of the online job vacancies. You can always simply select the skill you are interested in. For example, here, using digital tools for collaboration, content creation, and problem solving appear as in the top. Or on the second rank, we have allocation and controlling resources, or performing administrative activities. And of course, naturally, the profile of skills or information or knowledge, attitudes and values varies very much according to the labor market, the country. Look, for example, at attitudes and values. Manage quality appears on top. Cope with pressure, second. Work independently, third. Demonstrate enthusiasm appears as fourth. Interesting findings. Company focus is also available. Location, language, and then this professional dashboard, which is in a way a sum up of all these different phenomena, variables that are being analyzed in this version of the dashboard. Green skill is there, and you can do a bit of navigation and see how these different groups or families of green skill vary. Sustainable energy, for example, appearing as the most important family with in terms of number of online job vacancies requiring skills for this that would be relevant for this family. Then you have, if you click on it, then you have more information, more granular, also by region. I think we can just finish like this. As I said earlier, we are now already working on a new set on a new page for the dashboards. It will be looking at remote work. So the share of remote work as demanded in online job vacancies. And because now we have a lot of online job vacancies in the database, we hope we can get to interesting results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduarda. I find the presentation very interesting. And I also want to highlight the last part, the dashboards. They really give a very important message, at least for me. They make me realize the importance of data and the fact that there is a team working in the data production process. But at the end, once the data have been analyzed, it's also important to provide the message in the correct way to the end users. So those who open these dashboards are the end users, and they get the message right, more interesting in a fancy way. So it will be even for them more easy to interact with the data and with the message that is behind this data. So all these components, starting from the landscape of the online job vacancies, what are we going to select, and then all the process along, and at the end the presentation of the data is very important. And it means that we can increase or reduce the value of the data depending on the way we do the work, how efficient we are with the work. Thank you very much. Before reading the questions that are present in the chat box, I don't know the participants, if they want to raise their hands and participate with their questions and doubts they have with big data. Please don't be shy, interact with us. We have to take advantage of Eduarda. She's here with us today. Someone is going, there's a participant, D, who wanted to, was joining or not, I'm not sure. I can start reading the questions from the chat.
Yes.
And then I will give more time in this way to the participants if they want to directly address questions to Eduarda. There is Rabiatul that he's concerned about the cleaning process of the data, because in order to map the standard taxonomy, such as education and education codes, how do we deal with the cleaning process? Is it done by artificial intelligence or manually?
Okay. Thanks for this question. Shall we go question one by one? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the question about
The cleaning process of the data in order to map the taxonomy.
Okay. So as I said earlier, the main processes are based on machine learning based algorithms and techniques. From the ingestion already, of course, to the visualization. But I also said that there is human in the loop. There is human in the loop in several phases. First, when the system is established first, and the first 1, 2, 3 months of data are collected, we do then a fundamental work, which is jointly with national experts, labor market experts who know well the labor market, check the likelihood that the classification done is probable, is aligned with the characteristics of the labor market. That's one. So this is a broad question. Then we use also very specific ways to do this, first checking, reality checking, let's say, with tables in which we have, in which we list all those terms where we have important doubts about the veracity or the performance of the algorithm, veracity of the classification or performance of the algorithm. There can be, and there are also always terms that the algorithm, let's say, does not classify in a manner that can be acceptable. And this concerns educational levels, it concerns also occupations. This can be linked, for example, with terms, the terms that are used in the online job vacancies. And we have then a system to monitor, the probability that the classification is close or far from the proper classification, from the proper codes of the taxonomy. And so all those terms that have a high likelihood of not being correct are then given to the national experts, who check together with us and give us then the recommendation. That's human in the loop. So this is a way to do to help us also train then and help the system improving the classification, just simply using information intervention by national experts who know well the national context. We have done this for all cases, for Georgia, for Ukraine, for Tunisia, and also even in the case of the EU member states, the 27, the same process is done. Then there is also another layer or step of verification with human in the loop, that is a monitoring, a technical monitoring that we have introduced also in the case of the ETF project, based also on a dashboard with a number of indicators, key performance indicators, and this allows us also to follow issues that might be appearing with the performance of the algorithms in the different steps of the extraction and classification. So in the beginning and then during the process we do this checking. But the classification is done in several ways. Of course, the artificial intelligence-based classification. One is the direct comparison, and the other one is, let's say, a prediction of the correct classification. Let's take ISCO 08, based on the description we have in the text of the online job vacancy. And this is also done using artificial intelligence. So one is a more direct, the comparison, term to term, and another one where there are difficulties to find the correct classification. There can be several options, obviously, or where there is no job title clearly written, then we can predict from the description of the job from the text. So that this is something I wanted to say. I don't know if this is more or less clear, but you will have much more detailed information when you talk with the data scientists in the next sessions.
In the next session.
Yes.
And of course, despite the development of big data and artificial intelligence techniques, still the human being is there behind because of new concepts, new words that we find in online job vacancies. They keep repeated, and we need to find a solution where to allocate this type of words, to which skills is it referring, and so on. So still we need the presence of human beings, of technicians behind the artificial intelligence.
Yes, maybe I would just, thanks for this point, Mirella. I wanted just to continue your conversation, your idea by saying that, in fact, this work with online job vacancies also allows then the update of terms in the classifications. And this is being done now very actively for the case of ESCO, the European Classification of Skills, Competences, Qualifications, using all this huge data information from the 27 member states, EU member states of the CDFOP project and other sources, updating the classification in terms of skills, digital skills, etc. In the case of ETF and also the CDFOP, we also have additional sources on digital skills, because digital skills are changing very quickly. There are very granular lists of digital skills. They appear in many of the online job vacancies, and they are not in the taxonomy. So what to do in this case? When the online job vacancy contains new terms that are not yet in the taxonomy, because the taxonomies naturally are updated more slowly than the labor market. Yeah. So that's another kind of interaction between the two things, the terms from online job vacancies, so the labor market, and the taxonomies that are the reference for the classification. So we are using some additional sources of digital skills besides the ESCO that already contains many. And then there is all this conversation about the green skills. And there are issues that appear also related with the classifications, the taxonomies. For example, even the green skills taxonomy that we have now in ESCO. Some of those terms, we wonder whether the employers will ever use them in online in their job vacancies, because they are statistical, conceptual representations. Employers don't use that, don't understand that. So that's another issue here that we are dealing with and discovering. So sometimes the taxonomies do not totally express the language of the labor market. Obviously, they cannot, because they have to be wider, and whereas the labor market is a world of very big dynamics and change, different interests and cultures, different ways of presenting things from in different countries, sectors, etc. So these are also issues that we deal with, and it's good to recognize them. And this comes also to the conversation about representativeness that comes next. And I think it's a colleague from Vietnam, Dao. So I don't know if this colleague is still in the maybe not, but it doesn't. In any case, it's a very important question. That's one of the questions always discussed and asked, and work has to be done in this area. And so representativeness. Online job vacancies are not statistical conventional data. They is not supposed to be the same. Therefore, the question of representativeness, forgive me if we have statisticians here in the room, the question of representativeness has to be seen differently for the case of online job vacancies. They are not supposed to be the same kind of data with the same type of representativeness as conventional statistics. They are a different, innovative source of data that is still being harnessed. We can talk about meaningfulness. It's somehow touches upon representativeness, but it's different. Meaningfulness, and that's a little bit what we do when we do that validation by national experts, verification validation of by national experts of the classification of the data. It is the meaningfulness. What does this mean in that particular labor market? It's more that question, and this has to be well done with transparency. What we are doing in the case of ETF, and since it's a new project still, so in the pilot phase, what we did was a comparison of the data of the data sets, in graphs, in graphical form with statistical data, and this is available in our reports of Ukraine and Tunisia, first year of the project. So, and we can see there that there are, of course, differences, distinctions, and they are often related with over-representation in online job vacancies of occupations of the digital world, for example, digital economy or digital occupations, and higher level qualifications and occupations in online job vacancies. So this is one of the reasons why we see some overrepresentation in the data sets of online job vacancies of certain sectors and certain occupations when compared with the representative statistical data. In the case, for example, of online job vacancies from PES, from Public Employment Services, those that have online job vacancy portals, we see a more balanced representation, because PES, in fact, also deals with a wider range of occupations, of employers, of demands, rather than those more specialized online job vacancy sources that might be oriented to certain sectors, to certain types of occupations, and therefore create a certain degree of overrepresentation or underrepresentation. For example, let's say, in the case of Italy, an example, you will not find in Italy, in Italian online job vacancy portals, any job vacancies for occupations of the military group, or even health, doctors, etc. This does not appear in online job vacancies, because this is another way of recruitment. It's the organization of the labor market. This does not mean that in online job vacancies Italy, we will not see health professions or military, but they exist naturally in the labor market. They are simply tackled differently through other channels. It's the organization of the labor market. So all these things need to be taken into account. Then I want still to say one last thing. Just a second. That's the problem of online meetings. I have an urgent request. I come in 30 seconds.
Please go ahead, don't worry. As Eduardo was saying, vacancies present in PES are less overrepresentative, and I was wondering, I wanted also to ask her, even if there is difference between PES from different countries. So we see the difference between PES and online job vacancies present in other web portals, but what about the PES network, the difference between PES from different countries? Eduarda, what about the PES from different countries? Are they more or less at the same level, or do we see differences between them?
Yes, thanks. This is a very interesting question. Well, in the case of the online job vacancies of our three countries, the PES sources or portals are different in terms of number, coverage, also the update of online job vacancies, etc. Depends very much, of course, on the reliability or trust, let's say, that employers have in PES, or also the policy. In certain countries, it is obligatory that employers publish their vacancies or send their vacancies to PES. That's a mandatory requirement, legal requirement. But even in those cases, not all employers do that. So the role of PES in the web labor market is different. You can see very well in the analysis that exists in the O8, skills O8 of CDFOP, the share of PES online job vacancies in the total labor market country by country of the 27. That's a very interesting analysis. You see that in certain cases, the share is quite high. In other cases, it's much, much smaller. So that already gives you an information on whether or not PES is really covering or receiving, in simple terms, job vacancies from the entirety of sectors, types of companies, big, small, medium, etc., for different types of occupations. There is also another thing that needs to be taken into account, is that because of the deduplication process, it happens also that online job vacancies in the PES portals appear later, and therefore our system considers the first publication date. So if the one online job vacancy was published in 3 places, including PES, maybe PES was the last place where it was published, then it is already part of the deduplicate of those vacancies that are out of the deduplicated set. This also happens. And finally, a last contribution, let's say, to this conversation about representativeness that has many aspects, including the PES. There is research, paper done by the OECD. It's available. I will share it with you. I will send it to you, Mirella. That exactly analyzes this aspect of meaningfulness of online job vacancies used in big data analytics, and makes quite a number of conclusions that in fact show that these sources are very useful. They can have an important contribution to the labor market information system, and the question is that they need to be complemented, and they need to be complementary to existing sources. But that OECD research does not at all put in question the validity and reliability of this data. Does not put it in question, simply says it needs to follow a number of criteria, of course, and it needs to be complementary to other sources.
Thank you very much. If yes, Sulema has a question.
Yes, and yeah, a question, comment, but thank you so much, Eduarda, for this excellent presentation. It was very insightful for all of us. I just wanted to point out one issue about the representativeness, meaningless. I do think that it's a critical issue for our region in ASEAN. So, you know, I noted with very much interest that you're working in countries now in Egypt, in Tunisia, you know, in Ukraine, in countries where there are some characteristics in common with our region, like informality, right? So these kind of issues that make us usually reluctant to look at big data, right? Because of this representativeness issue. So I think that it's important that we emphasize that, as long as we understand that we're talking about a segment of our labor market, we, even in any countries, this tends to be biased towards the higher end, more digital,
Yes.
occupations. So as long as we see this as one piece and a very important and insightful piece of our overall LMI puzzle, I think that that's a really good, important thing to understand, because indeed, I've been in places where, people working on big data have told me, but it isn't consistent with data from the labor force survey. But this is the issue. It's not supposed to be. It cannot be, right? As long as you understand what each source is covering and use it in a complementary manner, then you maximize the insights from it. So this is just a sort of side comment, but my question is, it would be great if you can elaborate from a sort of skills policy perspective, lifelong learning, upskilling, reskilling. How can we get relevant insights from the data that you have on the dashboard, if we are on the skills development side? If you can just...
Yes. Thank you so much for the first comment that, let's say, in a way confirms the discussion we were having, and the issue of meaningfulness and contextualization. And I will share, of course, with you the document, the paper we are working on about contextualizing OGV data with in the labor market information data. This could be also interesting, and we can discuss. And it's really a fundamental point, no doubt. Now, on the question of skills and skills development, there are different ways of using this data let's say in a policy concern related with skills development. One way is just to use the information, the insights we get on skills, technical skills, knowledge, attitudes, which are a little bit the transversal skills, etc., and combine and look at, for example, occupations, the one digit, or of course then the occupations granular, and the sets of skills that are attached to each one of these occupations. We can even look at by regions, because the information is also available by region. So this can be useful for even for informing, for example, lifelong learning processes or policies. Very important is to bear in mind one thing also, that employers in the online job vacancies normally are not indicating or listing basic knowledge, basic skills that is, let's say, self-explanatory. They are looking and they are pointing, indicating those skills, knowledge, attitudes that are distinguishing, and that gives even a competitive edge to their company or to their online, to their job vacancy when looking for talent, etc. So they are not saying for a data scientist that you need to know Word and Excel. No, because that's simply literacy, digital literacy. But they are pointing, they are listing the distinguishing important skills for the job. So this means that online job vacancies do not provide a sort of a total profile of knowledge, basic fundamental skills, etc., but the distinguishing ones. And that's why I say that can be very useful for skills development, upskilling, reskilling. But of course, also for initial training programs, because then they will also check on the pertinence of their programs, comparing with the requirements as presented through online job vacancy data. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, and we have several examples of the use by, for example, universities. Universities are also now using this analysis, online job vacancy analysis, and comparing then with, first of all, their own programs, learning outcomes as they are described in their programs or qualifications. And they also use this data as orientation, let's say professional orientation for their students. For example, what are the salary packages attached to this qualification according to online job vacancies here in our region or in our country? What are the skills you still need to develop to be employable and competitive for these and these jobs? That's another important insight that can be made, because of course, as you can imagine, all these pieces of data are connected and can be connected in networks. Therefore, it's you can just pick one skill in the dashboard. You pick one skill and you get all the occupations that are attached to that skill. You pick one occupation with all the skills. You pick various occupations, various skills, and you see how all this can be connected as a net. So this can be used, for example, for this kind of career progression information. So the skills we have when we graduate, the skills we need to have if we want to get that job. Look at the requirements. What is it that I need to learn additionally and get additionally as competences, as technical skills, etc., to get to that particular target. So this is all possible, and there are now very interesting platforms that show exactly these connections and paths. There is also an idea even to do something a little bit similar for these countries of Northern Africa, with which now we are working. Maybe this will be possible. We are thinking maybe in 2024 we can get there. So this use of the skills data, the connectivity skills, occupations data for purposes of career orientation, in the sense of upgrading skills to get to a certain target. This is, of course, used for the learners themselves, workers, etc., the companies, and it can be very interesting in periods of crisis, where certain occupations are in a very simply in where workers in certain occupations have practically no chances, so they need to know what to do to remain employable. And this information can be used targeting then occupations that are still in a good position, let's say, in the labor market in times of crisis, in terms of employment. So this can be used a little bit like alternatives, lifeboat savior alternatives for workers in periods of crisis. Can be used also for companies for their human resources development policies, when they know what kind of technological improvements they are going to do, what are the consequences of these technological, let's say, change to certain occupations in the company, what to do with those workers, how can they be upskilled, etc. They can also use this data. So these connections of from 1-3 skills. Know what are your chances in the labor market. It is possible to do just with these simple dashboards. Take 3 skills. Eduarda, I have these 3 skills. What are my chances in this strange labor market? I pick those 3 and I search the occupations that require these skills that I can then emphasize when I apply for jobs.
Thank you very much, Eduarda. Very, very interesting. I really appreciate your presentation and the answers. We are now running out of time. I know that I have a participant one that has asked different questions, but I would kindly ask him to save these questions and address them to the next webinar, because in next week we'll talk about techniques and tools for the application of big data. So I think it's more appropriate to address them to the next week webinar. I would still kindly like to close with one question from my side. We more or less already know the answer, but I want to be direct with you again, Eduarda. ETF project on big data started in 2019. Why in 2019, and why you are expanding with this approach, with big data approach, and why using online job vacancies? Just in short.
Yes. Thank you. So in fact, it was, as always in life, there are opportunities suddenly that prompt something. ETF started something that was like a call for innovation projects inside ETF. And so I submitted this call because I was already working with online job vacancy analysis and doing capacity development actions related with that with countries of Eastern Partnership. So those countries of Eastern Europe. And this call was accepted. Then there was quite a lot of interest. So that was the opportunity, let's say. There was, of course, some background preparation done. We also noticed there was a lot of interest by ETF partner countries like Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine, etc. They were very, very interested in exploring the possibilities of big data and big data analytics. Because also of the deficiencies sometimes of the conventional labor market sources, very slow processing of data, etc. So it was a way to try to improve. Then expanding and improving. That's what I wanted to maybe add. So it's not only expanding. So with these 2 years for us were years of testing. This is why we call it a pilot phase. We were testing and testing a number of things, creating and testing, trying to improve as possible. We have many observations now done about certain issues. We are also addressing those issues and trying and finding technical solutions. Issues, for example, I will just mention one related with the access to data in certain online job vacancy portals that might be, for example, blocking the scrapers. That's an important issue. But there are solutions that go from simply negotiating to having a different approach to scraping. And all this is being explored in this pilot phase. Then the question of monitoring the quality and the performance of the algorithms and all the connections of the system itself. It is something that is also raised, has become stronger in the attention of the project and is going to continue to be improved. We have, as I already mentioned, a dashboard exactly to follow issues that might be appearing in worsening or not in the system. So the point about expanding is this now in this new phase has to be seen from the point of view of expanding quantity and also quality. So the two aspects. The qualitative part, the quality part is really fundamental. And thanks for all the questions you are asking, because all those questions contribute to the quality part of this approach.
We will keep following you with the next phase. And thank you again for being here with us and for this enriching presentation.
Thank you so much, everybody.
And dear participants, I also want to highlight again the contest that will be available next week. It will start on Monday. We'll discuss about the usage of big data in your countries, and participants with the best presentations, with the most interesting descriptions will be part of the resource people of the third webinar, which will be a peer learning webinar. Thank you again. We may close the webinar now. Thank you very much. Wish you a nice evening, a good day to all of you.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Mirella, and everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
you.
much. Eduarda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay in
you.
touch, Sulema. You have
Yes,
mail.
definitely.
Send me any questions you might have.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mirella, and all colleagues, all participants. Many thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao.